I remember that day so clearly. The day something inside me finally shattered. It wasn't physical pain. It wasn't normal sadness. It was like I had disappeared on the inside. Like I was only alive on the outside, carrying around a body that no longer felt like mine. The world outside kept going. People moved through their lives, and I just wanted to stop existing. Not because I wanted to die, but because living like that had become unbearable. I stared at the ceiling, motionless, trying to find a reason, any reason, to get out of bed. I felt guilty for not being able to react, for ignoring messages, for failing to meet expectations. It felt like everything inside me had shut down, like I was a burden no one knew how to carry. And the worst part? No one noticed. On the outside, I smiled. On the inside, I screamed. Maybe the most painful part of that day was believing it would never end, that the emptiness in my chest, that suffocating weight, was permanent. I couldn't imagine a future. Everything seemed too far away, too unreachable. And in that state of complete internal collapse, I asked myself, why had no one ever told me something that truly made sense? Something that wasn't a cliché, something that could help me just hold on. I didn't want advice. I didn't want someone to tell me to stay positive. I just wanted to hear something that would make me feel human again. Something that would wrap around my heart and say, I see you. If someone had said the right words that day, maybe it wouldn't have fixed everything. But maybe it would have hurt less. Maybe I could have breathed. Maybe I wouldn't have felt so alone. One of the cruelest parts of depression is the silence. Not the silence around you, but the one that screams inside. It's a constant noise no one else can hear. A quiet desperation that hides behind automatic answers and rehearsed smiles. I walked through the streets, sat at tables, talked with people, but none of it meant I was really there. It was like I was trapped inside myself, and no one noticed. That silence said awful things to me every single day. It told me I wasn't enough, that I was a burden, that everything would be better without me. And no matter how hard I tried to block it out, those words came back, repeated like an echo that never fades. The hardest part was not being able to explain it to anyone. Whenever I tried, I felt ashamed. I was afraid they'd call me weak, dramatic, or ungrateful for not enjoying life. The truth is, I didn't want attention. I just wanted to be understood. I wanted someone to see past my tired face and my rehearsed phrases. Someone who could really hear me, even when I said nothing. Because sometimes, the loudest screams come from silence. And in that silence, all I needed was someone to say, I know it's hard, but I'm here anyway. Just that. Just those words could have made a difference. That day, I didn't want solutions. I didn't want advice or well-meaning motivational quotes. What I wanted most was for someone to look me in the eyes and say something real. Something that could reach inside me without judgment, without urgency. I didn't want anyone to fix my pain. I just wanted it to be seen. If someone had told me sincerely that it was okay to feel this way, that I wasn't a failure, that what I was experiencing was an illness and not a personal flaw, maybe I could have breathed with a little less guilt. If someone had told me there were others feeling the same way, that I wasn't the only one drowning in dark thoughts, maybe I wouldn't have felt so alone. I wish someone had said, you don't need to get better right now. You just need to exist, and that's already enough. A phrase like that, simple and honest, could have pierced through the wall of silence I had built around myself. I didn't need solutions. I needed presence. Someone to say, I don't know exactly how you feel, but I'm here. Maybe if someone had told me that what I was going through would eventually change, not with forced optimism, but with the calm voice of someone who had walked that road, I might have believed them. And maybe that would have been enough, to hold on a little longer. Sometimes all we need is one sentence that holds us together inside. One sentence that says, it doesn't end here. For a long time, I believed that my pain was a sign of weakness. That feeling too much, overthinking, crying in secret made me less capable than others. I kept comparing myself to people who seemed to be functioning just fine, and I silently concluded that something was wrong with me. But now I understand. I wasn't weak. I was wounded. That one sentence changed everything inside me. You are not weak. You are wounded. Just like a broken leg makes it hard to walk, a wounded heart weighs you down. And no one calls someone weak for limping with a twisted ankle. So why do we call it weakness when someone's mind is tired, hurt, and exhausted? If, on that worst day, someone had looked at me with compassion instead of pressure, if they had told me that my pain was valid, that I didn't have to prove anything to anyone, maybe I would have felt less ashamed of how I felt. Maybe I could have asked for help without the fear of being seen as fragile or dramatic. Today, I say it to myself whenever I need to hear it. You're wounded, and wounds need care, not judgment. Because only when we understand that pain is part of being human do we begin to treat it with the tenderness it truly deserves. In my darkest moments, I believed that my existence only had value if I was being useful, if I was producing, achieving, meeting goals. When depression took away even the basics, the strength to get out of bed, to answer messages, to care for myself, the crushing weight of guilt came with it. I felt like a burden, useless, a mistake. But no one ever teaches us that the value of a life isn't in what it produces, but in what it is. You have value simply because you exist, even when everything inside you feels still, even when you feel like you have nothing to give. You are worthy of love, of respect, of care, even on your most unproductive, darkest, and quietest day. If someone had told me this back then, maybe I would have been able to look at myself with a little more compassion. Maybe I would have stopped punishing myself with cruel thoughts. Depression already hurts enough. The last thing we need is to blame ourselves for not performing like we used to. Now I understand. My worth never depended on my productivity. And yours doesn't either. You deserve to exist, even when you feel like you're doing nothing at all. That, in itself, is already something meaningful. Depression has a cruel way of making us believe we're the only ones going through it. It isolates, silences, and builds invisible walls between us and the rest of the world. I felt like I was falling into a hole no one could reach. I looked around and thought everyone else was living normally, smiling, moving on, except me. It felt like I was a hidden mistake inside a world that kept functioning. But the truth is, I was never alone. And neither are you. There are thousands of people feeling similar pain right now. People who, just like you, are fighting in silence. Who wake up each day and try to keep going, even when everything feels meaningless. You are part of something bigger, even if you don't realize it yet. If someone had told me this back then, maybe I wouldn't have shut down so much. Maybe I would have found comfort in knowing my pain wasn't a flaw, but a human experience. Sometimes just the simple assurance that someone truly understands can be enough to help us stay standing. Now I know, no matter how isolated you feel, you have never been alone. Even on your worst days, there is someone who cares, someone who understands. And sometimes that invisible connection is all we need to not give up. On that worst day, I truly believed my story had come to an end, that there were no more pages to write, that everything ahead would just be a repetition of pain. I couldn't imagine a future. I saw no reason to continue. Everything felt gray, slow, suffocating. It was as if the world had pressed pause, but only inside me. But now, looking back, I understand that it wasn't the end. It was only a pause. A difficult chapter, yes, but not the last. And that's what I wish someone had told me. Your story is still being written. What I felt back then seemed endless, but it wasn't. It passed. And even though the scars remain, they don't define my whole story. They only mark a moment I survived. If today you feel like everything is over, like there's no more path ahead, please breathe, keep going. Even if it's slow, even if it feels pointless, your story doesn't end here. There are still blank pages waiting for you. If I could go back in time and look into my own eyes on that dark day, I wouldn't try to fix everything. I wouldn't say to be strong or promise that everything would get better soon. I would just say what my heart needed most to hear. I see you, and I'm with you. I would say there is no shame in feeling what you're feeling, that you're not weak for being tired, or selfish for wanting the pain to stop. I'd remind you that breathing, even when it hurts, is an act of courage. That continuing, even without energy, is already resistance. Today, I would speak to you with calm and honesty. You will get through this, maybe slowly, maybe with setbacks, but you will. And when you do, you'll look back and realize that staying was the greatest act of love you ever gave yourself. If no one's ever told you this before, I'll tell you now. You are not alone. And your pain doesn't make you less worthy. It simply proves that you feel, and those who feel are alive, and those who are alive can begin again.